I'm going to ask Arvind Sanger on this point, is because when it appeared that the new incumbent guys would come and take all, the new folks would come and take all the market share of the incumbents, that I think has got challenged completely. So Arvind, we'll talk about autos and we'll talk about EVs, but in general, the month of April has been a good one for Indian markets. Kya party continue rahegi? Will the party continue?
You've been saying some interesting stuff. Obviously, the things that went well for India is first, trade war, India was seen as a winner. Secondly, US dollar was weakening, so investors were looking for diversifying away from the US. So those were some very powerful trends that India benefited from. Now, if the US starts to sign deals with a number of countries and the market starts to stabilize, then maybe even the dollar starts to stabilize. And the big kahuna, of course, is what's going to happen with China. And clearly, the signals from the Trump administration are very clear. They want to do a deal with China. And China has been playing a little bit of a tough game to try to make sure that they're trying to get as favorable a positioning pre-talks to be able to do a deal. But if May is the month where some kind of a China deal with significant reduction in tariffs, even if they end up at 50% or whatever happens, then you could see at the margin both the dollar stabilize and maybe China, which has suffered, benefit a little more. So very short term, I think things could cause some money to flow in those two directions. But I think directionally, India is looking like it's going to get a deal done very quickly. It may even be the first one. But that's nice, but that's not the real story. The real story is what is going on with the India growth story. And you were just discussing some high frequency data. Currently, obviously, the March quarter numbers have not been stellar. But if we start to see incremental data at the margin start to improve, then the India growth story for fiscal 26 starts to look interesting. And that's really going to be the determinant beyond the very near-term noise of global trade war as to how the Indian market does.
Okay. Do you see a case where in the near term, when I say near term, couple of months, maybe a quarter or so, emerging markets could underperform, developed markets could come back? Because this whole script of why US will not do well and why EM should do well, I think it's becoming almost like a public knowledge now.
Yeah, it has become a bit of a consensus trade. So I don't know if it'll last, the anti-consensus trade, whether that'll last for a whole quarter, but it certainly could last for a month. I think, the maximum pain markets, it's often said, move in directions to inflict the maximum pain. And if the consensus is so widely in one direction, then it is quite likely that you could actually get a non-consensus move. You could see a non-consensus sell-off in gold. You could see a non-consensus rally in US markets, maybe even a non-consensus rally in dollar. Again, these are very short-term trends, but it would not surprise me that what has happened in the last few days in the US market continues for a bit. And that does take some of the bloom of the emerging markets kind of frenzy. And frankly, even Europe has outperformed, Japan has outperformed. So you could see a bit of a non-consensus trade happen for a few weeks. But fundamentally, I think, long term, it may be a different story, but near term, who knows? I think your call is actually quite interesting that we could get a non-consensus move in the US markets.
Hi, Arvind. Good morning. Michelle also joining in the conversation. The way how the global setup is looking like at this point in time, yes, we are marred by volatility. And you were also talking about the fact, the way how the market rally or the up move now will actually be determined going ahead. But one of the key points to note is the way how you have the foreign investors now actually allocating their funds. The fact that they are actually a bit undecisive of the way how the US markets are actually going to pan out, given the fact that there's too much of uncertainty, there will be an economic impact as well. And the money is now slowly, once again, trickling back into India. Emerging markets is what they were anyways looking at. India was not that much of a preferred bet for them. But do you think now decisively the money will continue to come into India, given the fact that we've already seen relentless FII buying over the last 10 odd days?
Well, you have to step back a little bit and look at this, the length of these cycles. From, beginning of 99 through the end of 2007, I think Nifty was up like more than 500%. The US market was up 50%. So this is not new that you get this massive cycle. So look back at that data for that 8 or 9 years, and the Indian market and the Chinese market did even better. So EM had a huge run in that period, and US market did nothing. And it wasn't like the US economy was in the toilet or anything else like that. These cycles go for a long time. And then in 2009, look back at 2009, US had the financial crisis. US financial system had almost gone bankrupt. And after 8 or 9 years of huge underperformance by the US, who would have said that for the next 15 years, US market would beat every other market in the world? So these cycles last for a long time, but within those cycles, it is not a straight line. You will have months, you will have quarters where you get counter-cyclical moves. So, you asked me to tell you what the counter-cyclical move would be short term, or if you ask me medium to long term, I think medium to long term, I don't know if India will be the big winner or some other emerging market will be the big winner. But I think in general, US market, which got up to, by the end of last year, 50% of the world's market cap was in the US market. That was the peak that we came last in 2000. We came at the end of 2024. These cycles tend to have long legs for a long period of time. And I think India and other emerging markets that do well will, in terms of economic performance, are poised to benefit from funds flow redirecting to a more normal long-term cycle, because these cycles kind of turn and then they go for a long time.
All right, Arvind, really appreciate your time. I haven't seen you in Mumbai, my friend.
Yeah,
now tickets have become cheaper.
Hopefully in
now tickets
September.
have become way cheaper.
Yeah. Okay. Good to talk to you.
We'll have to host you very soon, and hope all's well at your place as well.
If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to ET Now.